Alright, another inmendham video. So yeah, I'm gonna rag on TYT, the young Turks, this corporate sellouts. They're protecting their little sugar daddy corporation, just like all the other news corporations financed by, who knows who, but we know that they're owned by YouTube essentially. So they're just gonna talk the corporate talk while they complain about how all the other media is controlled, that they're told what to say, and these people are saying exactly, doing exactly the same thing, except they're not going to get punished. It's just about, I can get fancier clothes and a better Rolex and, that kind of bullshit. So I left a couple of comments on their crappy video. Um, you know, some titled something like the motives of the YouTube shooter, and all they did was just make excuses for the corporation. The corporation has no responsibility. It's just these sick loonies out there in the world. So anyway, Anaconda also made just a horrendously stupid video, like all of his videos. And then the Modern Mystic is completely in his own little land. I mean, he's not talking about this subject, but it's sort of related because it's just more glib shit defending the be a glib asshole bullshit. Nobody should get upset about anything. Nobody should fight back. Nobody should resist the Borg. Just everybody should just sit back and take it. Oh, bullshit. Look, I'm not advocating that people do violence. I'm just saying that clearly the problems we have created are just the beginning. We're sliding down a slope of just, yeah, there's no way you live with each other anymore. I mean, we're really making it that obvious that our values are so different that we have no interest whatsoever in feeding each other at all, because you're feeding the enemy. You're aiding and comforting the enemy by supporting the human initiative. And it's clearly getting to that point, and nobody wants to admit that that's the byproduct of this forced diversity, and that at minimum we have to recognize that we have to accept that these are not compatible ideas, and that it would be really nice to avoid civil war over this shit and all that crap. So we actually have to have some mechanism to solve these problems that has something to do with maybe a more direct democracy and getting some of this lying corruption out of our lives, where everything is marketed to us and fed to us by a fucking corporation or the little flunkies of a corporation. It's all bullshit. This living in the Googleocracy. Fuck that. So anyway, I posted a couple of comments. No point in playing their video because it's just horse shit. Miles and miles of just, let's waste 15 minutes making excuses for the fact that a corporation provides absolutely no customer service, absolutely no accountability, absolutely no visibility about how it's manipulating the content on this website, and just pretend it doesn't have anything to do with anything like a right we might have, which it clearly does. So they're comfortably sitting on the we're supported by YouTube pile, so they don't see any problem because YouTube likes them. Okay, it makes their money. They get to sell their propaganda and their bullshit. And so, yes, from their perspective, it all looks perfectly fine. No problem. And it's just a lie. Lots of problems, and YouTube couldn't give a shit paying the freight for that problem. And let's remember the history of YouTube. Let's remember the history of Google. So first off, Google was a profound lie, okay? Created in Stanford University by two son-of-a-bitch lying pricks who claimed they were creating something in the public interest because all the search engines were corporations and they were all manipulating results, and you had to pay Yahoo. You actually had to pay them to index your website. And there was all kinds of corruption and finagling and wheeling and dealing. And so they make this free search engine for everybody, and they give it away free on a bunch of venture capital money and Stanford money but a bunch of money, somehow giving it away for free, like they could do that forever. Like they don't have some secret plan to get the fucking money back, which they obviously had. So why they lie about the fact that, oh, we're providing a non-commercial alternative. We're giving the people what they need. You know, and the plan was always to drop the hammer. So all they did is what William Randolph Hearst did. They just destroyed all the competition by giving a product away for free because they could afford to do it. All right? And so they drove everybody else out of business because they couldn't make any money, because how can they compete with somebody who's giving it away for free, somebody who's losing money? As William Randolph Hearst said, I can lose $1 million for 100 years and it won't even put a dent in my fortune. So why not? How are you going to compete against a business that can lose $1 million a year? And that's the racket. All right, that was the blueprint of Google. A sinister plot, okay, to do exactly what Microsoft wasn't allowed to do. All the nerds went hysterical when Microsoft had the idea of incorporating ad function into the browser, you know, to make ads that would be in the browser. And everybody screamed, you can't do that. Microsoft can't be allowed to do that. You know, evil Microsoft. But Google can do it. It can put ads on every website on the internet, monetize the whole thing for its profit, and then pretend it's a search engine of some kind, some kind of public resource, like a card catalog or something, when it completely has all these conflict of interests. And it demonstrates them all the time in how it runs YouTube. Every function that had to do with us having the power to decide what content was popular or unpopular was destroyed. All the categories were destroyed. All the mechanisms that had any kind of transparency. And now, unless you browse with a private window using Netscape, or Firefox or something, Google will give you a different internet than it gives everybody else. The suggested videos are different. If it knows who you are, it suggests different videos. Right? It puts your videos in there just to pretend. Look, we're indexing your videos. To make it just look like they're, oh, well, my videos are on the recommended list, when they're not. Okay? You open a private window, your videos are nowhere to be seen. It's all just a lie. It's all just a gimmick and a racket. Has nothing to do with anything honest. It has nothing to do with what it should be. It's a piece of shit. Okay, and this has become our infrastructure. This is how people talk to each other in the world now, is through these pieces of infrastructure, and they're completely bent and crooked. And all you assholes just like lick it up. Oh, give me more Google food. Shit. So anyway, I say, so they say, tell us what you think in their description of the video. The good news is it's getting raped by thumbs down. I mean, 1.3 thousand thumbs up and 428 thumbs down. So at least not everybody's buying this crap from, you know, the non-corporate. Some more lies about who's not the corporate and who is corporate. You know, they keep talking about everybody else is corrupt, and then they do something. Then they drop a bomb like this on a subject and just point out how you're just as sold out as the rest of these fuckers. All right, so it says, tell us what you think. Okay, I think you're just hypocritical sellouts. You BS about blood-sucking corporations indifferent to human rights, and then make lame excuses for the richest corporation in America because it's paying for your Rolex. Google has no customer service for content producers on YouTube or the internet generally, right? I mean, there's no way you can go to Google and say, hey, you know what, you're not indexing my website properly. There's no voice, there's no anything. They just do whatever the fuck they want, and there's no accountability. Nothing is checking, fact checking, or internet checking Google's search results. And just think back, if any of you are old enough to remember the old internet, you had a variety of search engines, and some of them were incredibly deep, and you could search anything. It was indexing comment sections, it was indexing everything. Google doesn't even index the comments on YouTube videos. It owns YouTube, and it doesn't even index the comments on its own videos. And how is that providing us access to the internet? I mean, how isn't that one of its responsibilities, is to index those comments? If it's going to index comments in a blog, why the hell is it indexing these comments? Oh, because that's not in its interest somehow. Period. End of sentence. Google, the search engine, doesn't even index this comment section. Why? Because it can't find it on the internet? Question mark. Google has replaced and monetized for its profit public infrastructure, the internet and the soapbox. And you fake liberals can't even suggest that it be minimally regulated to protect public interest fairness rights. That yes, classes of free speechers not be fucking discriminated against by this stupid corporation. Now, another subject came up was the whole DMCA. We were supposed to have this new digital millennial copyright act that was supposed to do lots of things. It was supposed to give Google immunity. So that means any one of us nutters could say any kind of vile crap, and we could behave in all kinds of vile ways, and we could steal content even. And people could protect their rights by filing a DMCA and taking the people to court. Now, the Congress provided no mechanism for anybody ever to get into a courtroom, so that part was lame, okay? Because the federal courts, because it's a federal law, the federal courts don't want to hear about it. They don't want to deal with any of these copyright issues, clearly. And so clearly it was totally unfunctional in the sense that even the music producers had no interest in suing a bunch of private citizens, okay, and looking horrible, like terrible villains, because they sued some poor guy because he stole some music for thousands of dollars to pay the bill for what it cost them to sue him. And so that part didn't work. And it clearly doesn't do anything for anybody who claims a fair use right, because now they've been totally sold out. So even if you were passionate enough about your fair use rights, we're quite certain, okay, you didn't violate any law because you didn't make any money and you didn't do this and you didn't do that. You followed the rules of fair use. And even if you were willing to pay your money and have your lawsuit, YouTube is already broken that capacity. So the whole point of the law was violated, and nobody wants to fix it. Nobody fixes anything. No one complains about it. The whole point of the law was to give them an immunity in exchange for them not doing pre-censorship. That was the whole point of the law, was to prevent corporate censorship. And instead, we have more corporate censorship. We're prejudged violating our right to claim fair use. We're first denied the ability to even publish before we can be even sued by a company. They're not even allowed to file a DMCA because we're never even allowed to violate their copyright, their claim of copyright. So we're not allowed to violate it, so we can never be DMCA'd. And this is exactly the thing the law was supposed to prevent. And they're violating it openly, and nobody's stopping it, nobody's fixing it. It just plain sucks. So anyway, sorry, I'm interrupting my own speech. Okay. Google has replaced and monetized, okay, public infrastructure. And you fake liberals, okay, right, so I already did that. So minimally regulated to protect public interest fairness rights. Non-corporate news, my ass. All right, so some guy who looks like a guy of color, which is ironic. Inmendham, I really want to understand your views. Could you offer some clarity? You have a problem with TYT defending YouTube because of all intents and purposes they are partners. Well, they shouldn't be. Yes, they call it a partner thing, but that really shouldn't mean I have to become part of the corporate Borg. While I agree with the point you made regarding a lack of customer service, I don't really see how YouTube is violating anyone's human rights. Well, I don't think I was really complaining about human rights. I was complaining about public interest fairness rights, if you take me seriously. Let's remember that they are a business, so they are ultimately in it for the money. And how does that change the fact, as I stated in my video, that the public infrastructure, that is the basic idea of your public square free speech rights, have moved onto the internet, and there is no public internet. It's all corporate internet. So essentially we've given away our free speech rights because we've given away the public square. We're not allowed to walk on the internet sidewalk. There's no public internet sidewalk. There's only corporate sidewalks. There's only corporate spaces. So if the generators of YouTube's main source of revenue, advertisers, wants to pull out because they don't like the content you post on their platform they provide you, YouTube will obviously try to appease them. Well, again, that isn't the full argument made by the Nassim woman anyway. Part of the argument is that her view count was cut in half. So it wasn't just about the money, all right, being cut in half. It was the fact that her view count, obviously her videos were not being promoted by YouTube anymore. They figured they'd put them on the second tier or the third tier. All right, so that's part of the argument here. Because you don't like the content you post on the platform they provide you. So again, this whole idea that they provide something that they have monetized and are taking profit from is kind of bullshit. So you want to call that a provision. So I'm going to call that a taking. So they're seizing something that shouldn't be theirs in the first place. I should be offered by the society we live in, should be providing public sidewalks. We should be allowed some public spaces on this stinking internet. They shouldn't all be privately owned and get to say whites only. Anyway, YouTube will obviously try to appease them. So where do human rights fit in? So again, I said public interest fairness rights. You can't figure out how fairness isn't an important word and that we really can't have it if the internet doesn't provide it? Okay, you can still post your videos. Yeah, on some other site where they're not indexed, where they're not going to be seen by anybody. Alright, by the way, doesn't YouTube have a right to even flag or remove your video if the content is not in line with their policies? Their policies have an obligation to be coherent and rational. If you're saying they have a right to have completely inconsistent policies, and that was demonstrated by the Nassim woman, her exercise video was tame and lame, okay, no crotch shots, no butts hanging out, no bullshit. She showed clips of all these other people that have their asses hanging out, they're fucking lesbians humping each other in the exercise videos, all kinds of sexually explicit crap. All right, her video is called adult content when there's nothing adult about it, and their content is free to be monetized and collect money. Clear inconsistency in the application of their policy. So if you're saying it's okay for them to have double standards, to treat some people differently than they treat other people, and to provide absolutely no explanation for why there is this discrimination, then I'm saying you're so full of shit, cunt. You don't want to be treated that way. You don't think humans should be treated that way. That's just bullshit, excuse making again. For instance, YouTube doesn't allow porn. Is that censorship or a violation of human rights? So now he's comparing porn, which isn't a First Amendment right or a Third Amendment right or a Fifth Amendment. It's not on the protected rights list, porn. I don't know whether you realize that, but it really isn't. Shit. So I said to this guy, you seem to have ignored the part where I said Google has replaced and monetized for its profit public infrastructure. The issue is similar to the 60s issue of public accommodation. By your reasoning, forcing blacks to use only black-friendly businesses should have been okay. So I think I just killed him with that argument. Because that's all he's saying. He's saying, look, people in the 60s were full of shit to argue that people had any kind of infrastructure rights. Okay, so it doesn't matter if the only restaurant that serves blacks is 60 miles away. It's your obligation to drive 60 miles away and go to the black-only restaurant. That's all he's saying. It's okay. Okay, so go ahead. Explain to me how that's rational. Okay, I think our public free speech and public square has in fact moved to these internet spaces. I think that's just an overwhelming, obvious fact. The public square has in fact, the relevant square is this square. Going out on my sidewalk with a protest sign isn't activating my expression rights. This is the place where expression takes place. And this place needs a public sidewalk. or it needs a regulated public space. So even if you let the corporations own it, they should be obligated to function in the public interest, the same as television networks were required to do, before Reagan gave them the right to just sell commercials all day. And certain basic rights have to be protected. Public porn isn't a free speech right, but much of the content on YouTube clearly is the very kind of expression our Constitution claims should be protected. I think this is just unrefutable fact. Okay, we have a Constitution. It's supposed to protect the very thing that's happening on YouTube. And instead, fuck it. Corporations are more fun. Fuck the Constitution, love the corporations. I would also point out that Google does clearly make some content more accessible than other content, and that right should come with visibility, responsibility, and accountability. It's a simple truth. They have little secret games they play with recommended videos with which gets promoted, what gets visibility. They're playing games with that content, and there's no visibility about how or why or what standards they're applying to decide who gets what attention on this fucking medium. And that, in my opinion, is not really acceptable. I don't want a corporation shoving their shit, okay, in my face in this dishonest, tricky, manipulative, bullshit way. You want that. I don't want that. You accept that. I protest that. So anyway, so let's see, anything else to say? Yeah, I think I said enough in those 2 comments. Well done, Gary. I don't like commenting, but it's just, they deserve it. I mean, these fake liberals, and it's just everybody's a fake. Everybody is just sold out to their little special interests. Their job is to trick old people into giving them money, and so all of a sudden being a shyster is a good thing. Whatever they're connected to. Their wife is a teacher, therefore insane salaries to 98-year-old 6th grade teachers getting $180,000 a year all of a sudden makes sense. I mean, it's just such bullshit. I mean, everybody is such a sellout. There's not a principle existing anywhere in visibility range. And the fact that some people might find that just so frickin' disturbing that, without any principles, without anybody cherishing anything, especially the fucking truth, what is there to live for? I mean, the fact that life is stupid in general has me pretty down, okay? But, yeah, it's all survivable if you can at least interact with organisms that aren't malicious criminals, and you're all just malicious, self-interested, motherfucking lying pieces of shit. That's what's being demonstrated. And the fact that some people wish to vomit on you in some way, and they choose to do so in some unpleasant way, I think is everything you deserve. Now, I wouldn't say, I'm not defending the intelligence of that overreaction, and I do think it's an overreaction, but I can't say it's wrong either, okay, because it is unacceptable. Who wants to live in this shit? So it really just comes down to is what you give a fuck about. So, all right, now we'll get to the more obscure characters like Anaconda Vod and the modern retard. So Anaconda Vod makes a 20-minute video basically just saying over and over again, okay, that his values are worth fighting for and everybody else's are shit. Everybody else's values or understanding of what's important or all of their concern for any principle or animals or the welfare of children or the welfare of workers in China or anything they give a fuck about is just some silly notion. But his fear of the gulag, that's important. Okay, the commie gulag. So anything that looks communist, he would certainly want to point a gun to it and stop it. Okay, but everything else that is valuable, fuck it. Okay, so the only thing worth hating is commies, because he hates commies. Okay, but every other value ain't worth fighting for, ain't worth worrying about, ain't worth investing in, ain't worth thinking you're entitled to. None of it is meaningful. The only thing is you just have to see how much cheese you have to eat, and that's all that life is just make sure you have enough cheese. I mean, it's just so glib, so disconnected from any kind of fair evaluation of a rational philosophy. So, so he thinks he's so centered, and he's meditated and Indian philosophized himself into some better perspective or something. When all it is I pay attention to the shit I care about and fuck everybody else and everything else. As long as I don't want them to hurt me, as long as they stay away from me. So I just want them to be passive, so they're not in my way. So I just don't want them to be in any way a threat to me, or I'll have to insult them then. Okay, so if they become threatening, then I'll insult them as neurotics, or oh, they're not able to look at the real world, or they have phony expectations or optimism, and they're too idealistic and silly. Their standards are too silly, because they might react to your oppression and find it insufferable and say fuck you. And they're not allowed to do that. So any sign of these rebellious types who might fight the man or the corporation that he's no doubt a defender of, right? He's supposed to be something. He called himself, I remember once, something like some kind of union negotiator. We know what side he must be on, right? But there's no union on earth would hire this asshole as their representative. So he's obviously fighting for the corporations. Just another sellout piece of shit who I hope they fire before his pension comes through, so he only gets a 50% pension. They should can him 4 years before retirement, and see if he has any reason to resent that. The fucker. He should get what he deserves. So anyway, let's play some of his slop. It's just endless slop. Just this vague notion that everybody else is an imbecile and a fool because they care about something, because they're invested in their life in some way. They're fucking idiots.
I guess something of a crusader. I'm fascinated by the pictures that are appearing of her.
Fascinated by some kind of crusader. I don't, that's right. So anybody who cares, all right, like if you're a Democrat or a Republican, lots of Republicans are fanatics, lots of religious fanatics, lots of people who are passionate about something. And he's just basically saying that anybody who's passionate, who has any kind of sincere motivational mechanism in terms of seeing value in the world besides just, do I have enough cheese to eat? If they're asking any more complex question than whether or not do I have enough cheese to eat? Or do I have my fair share of cheese? I don't even think he thinks we're entitled to ask, do I have my fair share of cheese? He doesn't even think that's a question we're allowed to ask, because he doesn't think there's any such thing as fairness. I'll jump ahead a little.
Garbage goes on, and it essentially is too much for them.
So this is the thing. Somehow it's too much from them. Their standards are too high. So if somebody goes postal, okay, if somebody says, fuck it, I have nothing to lose, okay, everything valuable to me, okay, has been raped, and I am therefore now done, my investment here is over. So if they do like a Josie Wales, right? It's a great movie, The Outlaw Josie Wales. So they kill his family, his wife and his kid. They basically give him nothing, okay? They leave him with nothing, okay? Gone, a missing life. And yeah, it's like, well, that's like the perfect storm. Yeah, give somebody nothing to lose because you took away everything that means something to them. Then yes, you create one hell of an enemy. One hell of an enemy. But no, none of that psychology goes into any of this shit. Nothing that, no reaction by humans is ever deserved. No one ever deserves blowback or a reaction. The reactionaries are always wrong. Unless they're fighting the commies.
Baudrillard's phenomenon of hyper-reality, where the reality of the media and of the internet, and I guess particularly the internet, and how it can sort of subtly take over the place.
Yeah, exactly. And it takes over. So this is a thing that goes to the modern mystic, because the modern mystic's in this deluded talking about how, he's not making self-help videos. Well, I mean, he has contempt for, like, he describes going to a bookstore and saying, well, I go left because the self-help books are to the right. And so he makes fun, in a way, of self-help. And then he's doing videos that are basically self-help videos, where he's explained to people how he has achieved some sort of perfect bliss because he's eliminated all his unnecessary wants and needs, and kept his life pretty simple, where he just does his little gardening chores and he plays with his tractors and he does his little simple things. And therefore, that's all life should be for you. And you shouldn't have any ambitions to say something like, I remember when I was a kid in the 60s, and I remember when people got paid, and I remember the middle class was getting richer, and things were going pretty forward, not backward. And, there was crying Indians on TV and stuff, and it was really good. And now really sucks. And that we should maybe go backward. That we should try to recapture where we were, okay, and get out of this cesspool. Climb out of the cesspool and try to get back to just the dirty space, where it wasn't filthy. Get out of the filthy hole and get to a more dirty world. But no, you don't do that. You just acquiesce and accept, because you just have a small mission in your life, that is to collect cheese and eat it. And there's no mission. So he's deliberately avoiding in his video even having a discussion about actually being productive. And the conversation's just about being happy or content. And the first thing that came into my mind was, gee, you're so clueless. Because obviously if that's all somebody wants, then just plug in the video game console. Okay, if you're going into retirement and you have no ambitions to be productive or to accomplish anything in the world, then plug the video game console in and you will have a wonderful time. Okay, you can explore any world you want to in a very interactive way that will challenge you just the right amount, and you'll have just the right amount of control, and you'll have a really rewarding experience. If that's all you think life is creating a rewarding experience for you to experience. But I would argue that obviously life is a lot fucking more than that. It's interacting with your life mate. It's making sure your kids have all the help you can give them. It's making sure other human beings that you live among aren't necessarily in bad conditions. That's your real game. But these assholes don't want to talk about that. They just want to keep talking about how to eat cheese and enjoy it, and quit worrying about anything else but your cheese plate. Disgusting shitheads.
Things at face value. As I say, some people, it would seem at least, want to be good people in order to give them the right or the obligation, I guess, of denouncing other people for their shortcomings.
All right, so his argument is that the only reason why any of these people are doing any of this stuff is for their own vanity, and so they can laud above you inferiors and point out how you're inferior, and that's why they're doing it. They don't really care about animals. They don't really feel their pain. They don't really imagine themselves being locked in these conditions and experiencing these things over and over and over again for eternity. They don't imagine any of that and say it's unacceptable. I wouldn't let it happen to me, so why do I let it happen to somebody else? They do rational equations like that. But that's all insincere tripe, because what they really want to do is just pretend they're superior to you, and that somehow they're doing this pretending in some way that is actually getting to you or bothering you in some way. So even though you somehow know they're just pretending and their rhetoric is meaningless, somehow it bothers you. Why does it bother you? If you think it's meaningless mush, you think it's just complete bullshit, then why are you complaining about it? Why is it an issue for you? What a fucking cunt.
The way the world really is, or I can see that happen. And you get to be sort of too, I guess, holistic. You can't handle the fact that that wheatgrass shake that you had 8 hours later will come out your rectum something else.
Right, so somehow that has something to do with being vegan. So somehow if you're vegan and you're pointing out it's better for your health and better for the environment and just better all the way around, and it's really simple to do, that statement means that somehow you're totally unrealistic because you don't realize that your vegan food will come out of you as poo. So somehow because you're going to make poo out of vegan food, it means that you tortured an animal somehow. Somehow torturing animals is okay. Locking them in pens and torturing them and killing them is okay because you vegan people are so full of shit because your shit's going to be shitty anyway. Which doesn't even make sense anyway either, because if I had to live in a pile of shit, I'd rather live in vegan shit than meat eater shit by a long shot. But anyways, totally irrational argument, clearly.
The toxicity of idealism, the toxicity of...
Okay, the toxicity of idealism. By idealism, he means any notion of improvement. Any notion whatsoever that you could improve things by 1 millimeter, that's idealism. So any way that you would fix one single chair, whether you would move a few chairs and move their arrangement a little bit, that's idealism. He doesn't mean idealism like in some insane perception, of a perfect world. No, he just means any improvements to be made. Any critique of the current condition is your problem. Okay, you're looking at the world wrong if you're finding something wrong. It's always a great world, no matter how sick and depraved it is. It's a great world. Enjoy it. He would actually smile through slavery. He would smile through any atrocity as long as it wasn't happening to him or his capitalist whore friends.
Feeling is somehow wrong. It's just you were basing your feelings on mistaken information, right? You thought that the world was a certain way, therefore you felt wonderful about the world.
Right, so this is another lie, right? Like all these, any activist or anybody who goes postal thought everything was just fine and it was perfect, and then something ruined it altogether. No, it doesn't take anything that dramatic. But it does take giving people nothing to lose. It does take driving people low enough so they just don't see any way to recover. They have no other option.
Or about your life, or about reality, or whatever. It's not so much that that feeling was wrong, but that you based it on the wrong things.
So again, wrong by his opinion. He's going to tell everybody what's right and wrong to think is a crime. So it's a crime if we lock, whatever. I don't even want to get into these comparisons, so I won't. But clearly, he doesn't consider an entire population of sentient life on this planet as relevant to any conversation. And so clearly I can use examples, but they won't mean anything to him because he just doesn't give a shit. And I suppose, there's probably is examples of human beings he would find it suitable to mistreat. And they're probably communists. Yeah.
One of my favorite quotes of all is by Andre Gide, where he says, "I would rather be hated for what I am than loved for what I am not." I think Kurt Cobain latched onto that as well.
Oh, very exciting. And again, irrelevant.
The toxic idealist, or I shouldn't say that.
Okay, toxic idealism. So he says this over and over, this idea that somehow it is toxic to recognize broken and to understand the value of fixing it, the value of the many lives that could be saved. Like when we say something, I could make an argument like we spend $4.8 trillion or something on baseball, and I could say that's as much money we spend on baseball in 1 year is as much money as we've spent in 20 years on finding a cure for malaria. It's probably true, or close to it. So here you have a disease that compromises the lives of millions of people every year, significantly compromises their comfort and lives. And we spend less on fixing that problem than on some silly bullshit entertainment. Complete bullshit entertainment.
Toxic ideas, but the person who has fallen prey to or has been seduced by toxic idealism.
So again, he uses the same word, toxic idealism. Toxic, he just keeps saying it's toxic for somebody to find fault with this bullshit and to complain about it and to fight it. No, that's an asshole in his idiot's opinion. Now the assholes are the assholes fucking rewarding you for talking this fucking tripe. Fuck all of them. Get what you fucking deserve, you selfish bastards.
Is the world for what it is not.
So again, you're supposed to accept it. There's no reason to think we could do better than this. That's what these assholes are saying. There's no reason to believe we could do better than this. Idiocracy is the best we could do. Cheating, lying, stealing, thieving, bullshit everywhere. That's the best we can do. Just enjoy it. Eat some cheese. That's their fucking goddamn advice. And why are they giving that advice? Because it's very convenient for their own self-indulgence. For one, it exempts them from any sense of guilt if they can get everybody to buy that crap. And, you know, they're free not to take any responsibility for their own gluttony.
They're overt acts that make them dangerous. It's the fact that they won't look at things for what they really are.
So he thinks he knows what it really is. He knows what life really is. Yet he doesn't understand what a mammalian brain is. He doesn't understand evolution as a process. He doesn't understand what intelligence is as an event in that evolution and what it actually can accomplish. He has no understanding. He thinks we genetically think. We're not improved by knowledge.
If it seems too good to be true, it almost certainly is, right? But
cliche, much, you know, but whatever, fine. There are reasons to profile reality, like profiling anything else. But there's also reason to keep in mind what Martin Luther King said, and you maybe should say, judge an idea by the content, the character, the integrity of its logic, not the cover of the messenger or something, the character of the messenger. Lots of little things like that you could say. You know, yeah, profiling works, but if you do it, you're very likely to never find the Hope Diamond.
It is my fault in that I allowed it to happen to me.
So again, and this is what we're allowing to happen to ourselves, is that we're allowing ourselves to recognize, I didn't sign up for this, and we have to have minimum standards that are better than this, and nobody really should be eating this slop, this gruel, this crap passively. Nobody should be. We should all be demanding fucking better.
Out of the ordinary, so you think you're just one of the lucky people, right? Then it's taken away from you suddenly, and where are you? Sadder but wiser, I suppose, for most of us. But some people can't handle having the blinkers yanked off like that.
So this had something to do with having blinkers yanked off. So she spends 10 years, you know, working on a personality, a social media thingy, okay, and then, yeah, that was sort of yanked, and it was yanked in multiple ways. Not only the income from it, but also the ability to grow her presence, and that to her was catastrophic, basically. Now, there could have been other factors that made it, you know, more unacceptable than I can personally understand, but you know, those two factors could be really big. I mean, no money plus no way to fix it.
After they have believed in the possibility of this wonderful ideal to suddenly be thrust back.
So this huge exaggeration again that people are living for wonderful ideals, that they're somehow expecting it to be handed to them. I mean, she clearly worked very hard at what she was doing. Okay, she had a green screen, she edited, she did lots of stuff, and yes, as a matter of taste, you could say, yeah, she wasn't probably going to be internationally famous, but that's not really the point. And again, there's no defending, saying no. There's no defending that there are always going to be populations who are vulnerable, and you always have to recognize that. I mean, we have laws protecting children, and we don't have those laws because all children are imbeciles or all children are incapable. We don't let them vote, and we don't let them drink, and we don't let them drive. It's not because all of them are irresponsible assholes. It's just that enough of them are. And the truth is, there's enough people vulnerable in our society, all right? And you can see it on YouTube. The psychosis is all over the comment section. There's a lot of psychotics running around on YouTube. Okay, not only the content producers, but the content ridiculers and commentators, and that you have to take some responsibility for that reality, and that you have to create some sort of mechanism for those vulnerable people to feel something other than desperate and hopeless. So if you don't want to concede that that's sort of a social obligation, then you get what you deserve.
Down into the morass, I guess, of everyday existence, or at least the comparative.
But I don't even, again, I make that statement with the qualification that I'm not at all sure, okay, that I'm not the pussy. That, it takes courage to die for a cause, okay, even if it's your own life, fighting for the dignity of your own life. And I won't ridicule it. I mean, I can't honestly say it's wrong. It wouldn't be my choice, but I can't say I know for certain, okay, it's not worth it. Because maybe it is. Because maybe that's what it takes. I mean, all causes are made out of people who stood up to something and died. Okay, I mean, got burned at the stake for fighting the man. Okay, and those people are heroes in history. Joan of Arc and such. So this asshole would say those people were assholes. Joan of Arc was an asshole. Okay, anybody who died for a cause was an asshole. Anybody who fought for a cause was an asshole. I'm not saying that.
Morass of everyday existence. The problem isn't with the world itself. The problem is in...
Oh, so right there, you're just, amazing. So it's not there's structural problems in the world that the capitalism's gone all whore to slut city. It's just so outrageously out of control that we've done nothing to really build up our civilizations, to invest in civilization. We've just sold it out to a bunch of for-profit money whores. They're getting richer and richer every day. Smaller and smaller percentage of people controlling more and more assets. And these clueless assholes, like this loser and the modern fucking loser mystic, think we're crazy for noticing that might not be good.
Our expectations of the world. And those expectations are often not as unrealistic as we think, at least based upon how we expect the world to be. Like I said...
Well, that makes a lot of sense. So he had to think about what he was saying, and he just basically said something entirely circular. So that was absolutely useless. He obviously went down a wrong track because he's saying it's not wrong to think. And then, oh, wait a minute, I shouldn't have said that because of course it's wrong to think.
If I'm rash enough to fall madly in love with a gorgeous babe who I meet in a bar, I have reasons for my sudden blind optimism. She is sitting there in front of me. But realistically speaking, things like that don't happen in the real world, right? Or
I don't even know. What are you saying? You can't find your true love in a bar somewhere. I don't know. I think it can happen in the real world. How long it'll last, well, that's another question. But so I don't know where he's going with that. I don't know how that compares in any way to these arguments about whether or not we should be social justice warriors, whether or not we should say, I'm mad as hell and I'm not going to take it anymore. Right? We're not supposed to even think those thoughts because that's a thought crime. Your intolerance of accepting the Borg's gruel is really a sign of you're a threat. And we have to silence you because you're a threat. You don't like Borg food.
I guess that's the religious concept of worldliness, right? You are attached to things of the world, even though most of what the world is completely out of your control.
Right. This asshole isn't attached to things. This asshole doesn't have a whole bunch of little dependencies in his life, a bunch of little special, he has a special little Buddha somewhere, and he has a special little this and a special little that to make him feel like he's in control and comfortable. And he's just mocking anybody else's control mechanisms. What a jackass. So enough of this shit. I'll play the last little bit. It'll be no doubt stupid.
Nebulous, ambiguous things at us that can hook us and make us believe that this world is a good place because something in us, whether we like to admit it or not, wants to believe that. That's the seduction of ideals, I guess.
So again, it has nothing to do with the reality that what exists is far below what a rational person could imagine us capable of. I can imagine a world that has 50% Carl Sagans in it or something. So just 50% of the people are still assholes. Not that Carl Sagan wasn't an asshole. I think he said 7 kids, a fucking asshole. So he's not probably a perfect example. But I just mean in temperament and general attitude. Okay? And that would be a huge improvement over this fucking Beavis and Butthead bred with Homer Simpson shithole we live in. Morons like this douchebag. Alright, so moving on to the fucking mystic. I'll play a little bit of this. Alright, so these are he's doing a bunch of videos now, so I don't know if he'll delete them. They're kind of long and he's boring as fuck because he's not really saying anything. He's just evading saying anything. They're working very hard to somehow say that it's not important for you to think about anything meaningful. Your life is really just about creating some silly routine where every day you pick up your little ball with a stick, it falls in play with your ball and the stick until you get bored, and then you pick up the little paddle ball thing and you do that. Oh no, I like that for 5 minutes. So you just find little gimmicks in your life to keep you distracted and occupied. And that's living the real life. Holy shit. Is that ever shit?
Be paying more if they were nationalised now than you do now.
Right, so he's reading some guy's comment, okay, just I'm taking the whole video to read one comment that's basically saying things were so much better in the 60s and 70s than they are now. And it's just basically because, yes, we sold it all away. We sold every bit of public infrastructure to some shyster so he can make it into some sort of corporate business where a bunch of millionaires can pull most of the value out of everything. And so he's arguing here that if we still had any public services, they'd still be wildly expensive because, we can't do anything publicly in any kind of cost-effective manner. And clearly we can. I mean, they built the Hoover Dam very cost-effectively. So clearly you have to do something about the government union, though. Obviously, the way it's back in the 60s, government employees were paid less, okay, than, public industry employees. And now it's completely reversed. The public employees get insanely high salaries that no one in the public, gets. In the private world. It's just completely upside down. So obviously that would have to be fixed. But even in that worst case scenario, what this clueless fuckhead doesn't understand is when government wastes money, it wastes money on people's salaries. lots of people's salaries. It doesn't give the money to 0.01% of the people. So the waste isn't going to a tiny percentage who just spend it on imported marble and yachts and a bunch of other luxuries that nobody gets any value out of. When you spend it on government employees, they buy the same infrastructure that we all buy, and they make all of that more cost effective by increasing production and giving us the value added of mass production. So we get they're lowering prices by increasing consumption of the things we all buy. When somebody makes a yacht, all it does is waste labor. It doesn't add any value at all.
Because they are not nationalised, yes, you have to pay the extra for private shareholders' profits, but the efficiencies that these bastards make and do pass on to you.
So let's understand, those efficiencies are 99.99% underpaying employees. So that's making consumers have less wages. So that's how they gain this productivity. So it's like saying, oh, I don't want to have public services because I'll have to pay more, and not recognizing that the gimmick is you get half the salary. Okay, so that's what you're paying to have it private. So for private industry to run everything, your salary's cut in half. So yes, the private industry gave it to you cheaper, but you lost more in salary buying power than you gained in cheaper service.
You would have made it cheaper by going sold over to private as opposed to nationalised. But the consequence obviously is that all wages in that industry have been driven down.
Yeah, by that very process of giving it all to corporations who steal the money from the workers and give it to the 1%. The 1% he said that aren't getting filthy rich. Not really. He has some secret, he said maybe someday he'll do a video on that, how the 1% aren't getting richer in any real sense, which is a crock of shit.
And a lot passed on to shareholders, but a lot also passed on to the customer. It's just a fact.
It's just a fact that that's the very mechanism that cut the average worker's wages in half since 1975, or even 80. Cut in half. In half.
But it's more important than it's been privatised and efficientised, and wages have been driven down. That's
right. Again, this argument that there's some kind of efficiency in all of this advertising crap. So we're hiring a bunch of people to sell people what they don't want, okay, merely to increase the profits of the shareholders, not to do anything valuable for society or even the corporation realistically, because it just ends up being small print, shysterism, lies, cheats, thievery of any kind. Let's just lie about how many megapixels it is. We'll lie about this. We'll lie about that. We'll distort and cheat and manipulate is wherever we possibly can. And that's all. That's a huge percentage of the industry. So a huge percentage of the industry is just lying to the public. And clearly you wouldn't have that if we had not-for-profit businesses that only had one interest, which is pay workers and provide to consumers. So without the evil rich people involved, we're much freer to have a system that can't possibly fail, in the sense that the failure would be either consumers get too good a deal or the workers get too good a deal. But there can't be any real negative, because neither one of those things would be a bad thing.
The only other places that wages haven't been driven down and pensions quality not driven down is in the civil service.
Yeah, exactly. So that's obviously something that's reversed the equation, where that's another one of the out of proportion things. If you want to be a millionaire, actually, it's a good idea to become a teacher. So all this whining about teachers are underpaid and everything, no, if you want to become a millionaire, it's one of the surest ways to go from a mediocre education degree to being a millionaire, is to get into government service. I mean, it's an irony, it's an insanity is what it is, but it is a fact. I mean, if anyone was going to give advice to a young person, the advice is take your civil service exam. I mean, fuck, get a government job, because the wages are insane compared to private industry. And they're mostly idiots, so if you have any brains at all, you should be able to run the show in a couple of years and get couple $100,000 for sitting on your ass and doing almost nothing.
And I'd say if you're wanting to have a rant and rave about something, it is the driving down of wages everywhere. Or you can take the opposite approach, that the civil service is holding out as an unreasonable bastion of giving out decent wage.
Yeah, it's half and half, okay? Cut a quarter off the government employees and add a quarter to the public employees, or however you want to define them, the private employees, and then you'll have some kind of rational balance. But the point is stop it from going to those rich cunts, because they're not a player here at all. They're not a necessary component here at all. We don't need rich people to tell us how to be human. We don't need them to incentivize us to lie to each other and steal each other's money. We don't need their guidance, because their guidance is corrupt, sick, broken, disgusting, and rotten. They don't do anything for the public good or any good besides their own good. And that's not the kind of person you want to take advice from. You don't want them running your fucking, you don't want them engineering your society. These asshole, glib, fucker defenders of, capitalist whores. Okay, anyway, probably enough of a video. I feel like it's enough. So yeah, I almost find, I always liked watching mystic videos because you always seem to have some sort of new angle or something, but this is just so drony, boring, meaningless mush that he's been talking lately. I just totally almost unwatchable, painful to watch. Ugh. Brain-numbingly tedious. Okay, so predictable. Ugh. So anyway, till the next time and such. Yeah, it's a good enough ending. I'll declare it good enough. Now, by my authority, I say this is a sufficient video. I put my seal on it. Complete enough. The end.